there. Welcome to the Pelvis Project podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Roxy. We're two pelvic health experts brought together by passion for our careers, entrepreneurship, motherhood, and the desire for intentional relationships.
Join us in our mission to spread pelvic floor awareness and start conversations surrounding the truth behind genuine health, imperfect wellness, and joyfully navigating life. We are so glad you are here with us.
Let's start the conversation.
Hello, Roxy.
Hello, Megan. It's a hot one.
It's a hot one. It is. Everybody
Summer.
that is not in Kansas, it is like 105 degrees today. So wherever you're listening from, what are you drinking, Roxy? What sparkling water do you have today?
Tangerine Topo Chico.
I'm drinking the Waterloo Summer Berry. That's what we should start a new segment on is what are you drinking? Cheers.
Some days I may not want to vocalize what I'm drinking. I may not want to disclose.
One of my new favorite things. Have you tried those drinks called Recess?
Yes.
Oh, man, I love those. They're not too sweet. They're refreshing. They've got adaptogens in them. They're supposed to relax you. They're so good.
I don't know how much I actually relax tonight.
I don't either, but I just like that it has L-theanine in it, and it makes me feel like it's a mocktail. So, okay, well, we are going to jump in with our episode today, and actually, we are going to talk a little bit about why we recommend the first postpartum visit being at the 2 to 3 week mark and not the standard 6 week mark for coming and seeing your pelvic floor therapist.
Yeah. So just some food for thought. Imagine that like after you have a surgery, tear ACL or have a total knee or whatever kind of procedure you would have, the doctor's saying, well, we'll see you in 6 weeks. Until then, just don't overdo it, just be careful, and that would not be okay. Like that doesn't happen for surgery. And so why then the question we're posing is why is that the recommendation, the standard recommendation after giving birth? We just want to kind of try to bring some light to this, maybe understand why this has been the recommendation and what we're seeing as pelvic floor therapists and what our recommendation actually is and why it differs from what your OB is going to say.
Yes, absolutely.
So just to kind of start out, we need to dive into why did 6 weeks become the magic number? Where does that come from? And so historically, that 6 weeks is really about checking on the uterus. And if it's decreased in size, if bleeding is decreased, if there's no major medical complications, we give the body that 6 week healing timeline because that is a good standard of measurement for healing in that way. But it's not, that 6 weeks that check-in isn't designed to assess movement or check in on the muscles or look at the scar or really talk about pain, bladder function, bowel function, or returning to activity like we do. OBs and pelvic floor PTs just simply have different roles. And so when the OBs want to see you at 6 weeks, they're checking to make sure that you survived birth medically and you're not set up for catastrophic or life-ending complications from your delivery. We, on the other hand, are helping you recover physically. And those are really big. There's really big discrepancy in those categories. And that's why we're disagreeing with a 6 week checkup from a pelvic floor therapy standpoint.
Yeah. And so if we think about this, like for long history, we have the 6 week checkup with the doctor way back when pelvic floor therapy wasn't even like a blip of a thought. Like we're talking years and years and years. So obviously things have evolved and changed. Pelvic floor therapy has changed. And so it's still it's still what OBs do. But like Roxy just mentioned, we believe and we follow a different recommendation that we see, and we'll tell you why we want to see somebody at 2 to 3 weeks postpartum, which we're not doing any internal work at that point. Tissue still needs to heal, all of that, but we're going to get into that. But I just want to point out, and this was talked about Roxy and I were just talking about this at a lecture that we were at, but in 2018, actually, ACOG recommended that postpartum care become an ongoing process with initial contact within the first 3 weeks postpartum, followed by individualized care rather than the single 6-week visit. So there actually have been changes to this, but it still continues to be this 6-week mark. And so, first off, just knowing you can request to be seen before 6 weeks. And that's one thing. I have had patients come in at that 2 to 3 week mark and there's something going on. And they're like, well, I don't see my doctor for another 2 or 3 weeks. And I'm like, go ahead and call them. You can go and see them before 6 weeks. And that's the thing is the OB-GYNs want to help you, but they can't help you if you don't let them know. And so that's the first thing is just knowing like you are allowed, you can. Obviously, there's a lot of people that understand that, but there are some personalities that think like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just wait till 6 weeks. And it's just not the case. That's the first thing to keep in mind that actually there is a recommendation on that. So the other reason why, so when we start talking about why we want to see people a little bit sooner is healing starts immediately. Your body's already healing. And we need to be thinking about things like, how's that scar healing? Do we have any swelling or edema anywhere? Are there any breathing changes? What's the change in the rib cage? How's pressure management going? How's our core recovering and activating? Because you're picking up your baby day one. You aren't just, like sitting there doing nothing. How's your pelvic floor healing? How's it activating? Because your core and your pelvic floor are working together. We need to get away from thinking things like, we need to leave it alone. And we need to be thinking along the lines of like, are we ready to learn breathing strategies, improve comfort, reduce strain, move efficiently, and prevent bad habits?
Yeah, I always tell my patients, you get out of bed day 0, right? Like right after you deliver, you're getting out of bed, you're walking to the toilet, you're holding baby. So our core doesn't get to just rest and do nothing. And our body doesn't just get to do nothing. So when we start the healing process, people think, oh, we can't do any exercises until 6 weeks. It's like, okay, we're not talking about fitness. We're talking about restorative movements that help the body recover. If we wait until 6 weeks to see people, a lot of times what we're seeing are bad habits pop up. And some of these can include things like holding your breath while you pick a baby up, or constipation that's gone on way too long because women are afraid to push because they probably have a tear or something, down in that area, or they're nervous that it's going to hurt. We also see people that are just kind of sitting or really slowly moving around in pain for way longer than they should because they think that that's normal healing. Awkward walking, like just limping or kind of a hunched over gait pattern that is not normal. Also, just things like fear of moving or leaking and assuming that things are normal. A lot of times these people are Googling things too. And unfortunately, Google isn't as reliable as we'd like it to be all the time. And so there's just a lot of misunderstanding and uncertainty and unknown. And it's no one person's fault. We're not trying to blame anyone. We're just trying to bring awareness to this 6-week number that if we just leave that alone, unfortunately, in some people's story, it ends up inflating the problem. When we get these women in earlier, we can either prevent these or nip them in the bud right away, and they aren't even a thing.
Yeah. So, at the 2 to 3 week visit, when we're going through, that's the time where we can do the education. We talk about like what's normal, what isn't, what symptoms should prompt medical follow up. And so, like Roxy just mentioned, we're able to like see you, get eyes on you. Are you sleeping? Are you eating? What's the pain level like? How's the bleeding? All of that stuff. And then we can help encourage you or advocate, help with that, whichever avenue that is. And then as we were talking about and really kind of breaking down a little bit more about like why meeting with your therapist earlier is better, is right then we can go through, like we mentioned before, we can go through and make sure, because the last time we saw you, you're pregnant, your ribs aren't moving, you're not breathing, your core is having a harder time being engaged. So we're going through that. We're going through, how are you getting in and out of bed? How are you going to stand? Like Roxy mentioned, we just went from having to weight shift side to side because like our center of mass changed to now we need to reincorporate where our center of mass is. So there's some easy exercises I give people now that are just developed to like change their balance back, getting them back to like a heel toe gait pattern. And all this stuff also is really great to do early on because it can help with the, like releasing endorphins and all that kind of stuff, like our happy hormones to try to be like, okay, I'm moving around and getting blood flow going. And then also, like we mentioned, the scar care, making sure that it is healing properly. We can obviously look at your C-section scar and make sure that that's headed in the right way. I've had somebody come in 2 to 3 weeks postpartum and they had a whole bunch of swelling around their C-section scar. So we started some gentle lymphatic drainage. And if I hadn't seen that for 6 weeks, we don't know, would it hang out there? Would it go away on its own? But at least at that point, we knew like we could do something about it. So again, like Roxy said, like if we catch these things sooner, it can help prevent down the line. Same thing with like leaking urine. If you just had your baby and you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm leaking urine, just a few cues or a few questions or a few recommendations can help correct that sooner. The longer leaking goes on for, we know per research, it shows that it's harder to get it gone. So again, it's no fear around this. We can help at any time, but why not optimize? The other thing too is I just find it's really great. I mean, I do a lot of like spinal manual work, and by that 2 to 3 week postpartum visit, their backs are sore because they've been trying to nurse or feed. Their heads down a lot because they're like up late, rocking the baby, looking down at their phones, and their necks are sore. So just like the feel good of having your body loved on again because you're serving this child round the clock and you need that time. And then of course, like Roxy mentioned too, talking about constipation, talking about those first bowel movements, even having the conversation, even though we're not doing internal around like returning to sex and those sorts of things, like education is empowering. And having somebody on your team early on is really helpful to be able to bump questions of is this normal? Because again, especially if it's your first time, even if it's not your first time, it's like we forget, we can help guide that. And then, of course, Roxy and I both offer the therapeutic ultrasound for clogged milk ducts. And so that's the other thing, is I like to ask questions like, are you breastfeeding? How's that going? How's your milk supply? I educate on the clogged milk ducts and ask them, obviously if they've had any, and give them a handout on prevention if I haven't already given it to them at their last prenatal appointment. And then getting them with a lactation consultant too early on, if that's the case. So there's a lot of, collaboration that can happen and just general other areas. I also like to ask, even though I'm not a lactation consultant, how's baby latching? And if they're like, oh my gosh, it's so hard, again, have they seen a lactation consultant? We have a therapist in town that sees babies and kids for torticollis and plagiocephaly. Are they noticing that stuff? So it's just a great resource and referral kind of place where you can collaborate and get those questions answered and have somebody kind of in your corner.
Well, let's be honest, postpartum, basically everything in your world's flipped upside down, right? Like the
Mhm.
things that we feel confident about are no longer there. I mean, yes, they're there, but rhythms are upside down. Even other siblings are reacting differently. Our body doesn't feel like our own. And so that what I find is just when moms can plant their feet on something they're
Uh-huh.
confident in, and we can help
Yeah.
them say, this is how you're supposed to move. Like you can go to the bank on this, right? That just makes just a big difference on like the mental load and the confidence there, because there's a lot of things that we're not confident in. We're learning this new baby and we're learning rhythms and we're
Yeah.
trying to navigate so many new and uncertain things that I've even just felt like the peace of mind that women have of just saying, okay, I'm confident in this at least. Like if I can do one thing right today and this is it, then that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Some people really kind of have not come against this, but questioned it pretty hard of just, well, aren't you supposed to just rest? Right. And we would just want to clarify that rest does not equal immobilization or doing nothing. Healing is not passive. And so, thinking about if we go back to that first example that we talked about with the surgery, we don't put everyone on bed rest right after an orthopedic surgery. We don't necessarily put everybody in a brace right after surgery, right? That would be immobilization. A lot of times we're introducing the appropriate movement in the appropriate progression to help guide healing. The same concept is true here postpartum. Moms are moving anyway, and we are guiding that movement so that the movement that they're doing anyway through the day is promoting and supporting healing rather than fighting against that healing and establishing bad habits. And so a lot of times people think that we're going to go hard at just like pelvic floor strengthening right out the get-go and core strengthening right out the get-go. And really, probably none of that is happening. And Megan's hinted at a lot of things already, but a lot of times those early visits is mostly assessment and education and gentle recovery and really building confidence in this body that feels foreign. It's not about returning to running or anything really wild and crazy. It's really promoting that healing.
Yeah. And I have just gotten, honestly, when I'm seeing my prenatal patients, as we're getting closer towards their due date, I just tell them then, like, hey, let's go ahead and schedule your first postpartum visit. I'm going to base it off of your due date. I like to see you at the 2 to 3 week mark. And I tell them exactly what we're going to go over. And they're like, oh, okay, great. And that point too, you're already familiar with the space. You already know who you're going to see. You already know that you are welcome to come and be a mess if you have to be. You can bring your baby. You could not bring your baby. Like there's so many different options and it's based off your comfort. We also do offer, we can do virtual at that point, but regardless at the 2 to 3 week mark, I cannot say it enough. Like, I just think it is so incredibly important. And so I think the key takeaways that we need to remember is like Roxy had mentioned before, but recovery starts immediately after birth, not at 6 weeks. Remembering that ACOG recommendations for postpartum care begin within the first 3 weeks and continue as an ongoing process. Early pelvic health PT focuses on education, symptom management, breathing, mobility, bowel, bladder function, and individualized guidance, not aggressive exercise. Again, in these first few weeks. Early assessment may identify concerns that benefit from timely intervention or referral. And every postpartum recovery is different. We need to remember that. And care should be tailored towards the individual rather than based on a single timeline. So I have people that have worked out for 12 years and worked out all through their pregnancy and had their babies, took like a week, got right back into it. And actually that was appropriate for them. They could. And then I have other people, Roxy could probably agree, that that's just not the case. And there are so many different factors that can play into how you're going to recover from delivery. So again, taking comparison out of the equation and just focusing on what you individually need and finding whoever that is to get on your team to help guide you through that.
Yeah, I just think kind of as my final thought here is I've never really had anyone regret coming in sooner.
Yeah,
If anything,
same.
it's the
They're
other way
like,
around.
oh,
Like
yeah. They're
I
like,
have
that's
so
so
many
great.
people say, "Oh, I should have just come in earlier," or "My last pregnancy, I didn't do this, and I should have just done it." So, Megan, you said this earlier. Like we don't know if we prevent, what we prevent. We don't know what would have been, but if we can help it along and we can kind of get a jump start on the healing and avoid some of those headaches later on, then why wouldn't we? And we're seeing the benefit of that in real time when we're working with women that's early postpartum.
Yeah. And gosh, it just is so great to be able to have somebody come in and you just be able to love on them, ask them how their delivery went, let them just like share their story. If there were hard things, let them cry. If there's celebrate with them on the good and the bad. But like to your point, Roxy, I think it's really, I mean, we've never had anybody that regretted coming in at 2 to 3 weeks. It's nothing but like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I went ahead and came in here and even if it is just body work and cupping and restoring some of the function and I mean, golly, it's like running a marathon. And just like somebody went and ran a marathon, how they're going to go potentially to their PT afterwards or whatever, it's kind of that same thing. And man, I just love too trying to convince them if I have an open room to like then go in the room and go take a nap for a little bit. I'm
I'm
like,
like, go
Hey,
get
I
a
got a spare room.
coffee
I
or
know, me
go do
too.
something. Are you going to go mosey around Target while
I
you're
know.
out? Like, go do something.
I was like, "I've got a spare room. I can turn the red light on. You can lay down." I've had a couple moms take me up on that, and I almost am, like, trying to convince them, like, "You should stay for another 30 minutes." So, anyway, but hopefully this is helpful, and it sheds some light and makes everybody be a little bit more like, aha moment on this postpartum visit. And just remember that when you go to your OB-GYN, they're looking at something kinda completely different than what we're looking at. And when they say you're cleared to start back. It's not like you're cleared to go and do all the things. Your muscles didn't suddenly like just randomly, they're all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're back to where we were before just because you go to that 6-week appointment. So just keep that in mind, and we are here to help. Well, until next time, we will keep the conversation going. Thank you so much for joining us this week on the Pelvis Project podcast. Help us continue the conversation by liking and sharing this episode with friends. And if you really want to do us a solid, leave us a review. If you'd like to follow us on social, check out the show notes for links. And remember, this week, take a deep breath and relax your pelvic floor.